I am going to give you 8 book recommendations. I have seriously enjoyed them all. So I think there's probably something here for everyone. Danielle Hogan, and I'm your homeschooling mother of 7. This is Hogan Life, and I like to talk about everything mom related. If you know me, you know I love a good read. I like to read from a lot of different genres. It's not just about words, it's about the way the words are put together, and that is something that every author brings in a slightly different way, which is why I love to experience the way a specific author writes, especially great authors. So first, let us have the drums. Drums? Anyone got drums? The first is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It was actually my friend's boss who gave me this, and I enjoyed it. It was a good kind of self-help read, specific to slowing down, enjoying life, not being so hurried, not giving in to the constant stress of having to move, and rush. And I did like his take. I thought it was funny and sportive, but also really practical on some specific changes you can make in your everyday life to kind of just rein yourself in from the way we are just pushed to always have something going on, always rush to the next thing. The clutter that is constantly in us because we don't take time to just breathe, allowing your soul to catch up with your body. Good read, enjoyed it, not a hard read, 256 pages. And I just have to read this little blurb, and it is one of his tips on how to slow down. It resonated. Get in the longest checkout line at the grocery store. And everyone's like, I hate you. We are in such an efficiency-obsessed culture, and that's what he was saying. So here's why I do it. Sometimes, not all the time. It's a way to slow down my life and deal with the hurry in my soul. It gives me a few minutes to come off the drug of speed, to pray, to take an inventory of my emotional and spiritual vitals, and when I get up to the cashier, to express the love of the Father toward him or her simply by saying hello, asking a few questions, and saying thank you, rather than my default of paying for my items while texting with work, while podcasting via headphones, all the while treating the poor cashier like an ATM instead of a soul. All right, the next one is Pickwick Papers. Not the smallest book I've read recently by any means. Now, this is Charles Dickens. This is about a 765-page novel. I do love Charles Dickens. I think that his writing is just brilliant. If you are not a true fan, read The Christmas Carol first and read A Tale of Two Cities first. Don't get right into the Pickwick Papers. He really just takes characters, and at the same time, some of them are endearing and some of them are just totally ridiculous. But it's like he is able to draw out some of the most ridiculous parts of human nature and just laugh at them, put them on display. This is so outrageous, and yet I can relate with it. I've witnessed this in humankind. I've always said in reading Dickens that you have to read at least the first 300 pages before you really know what's going on in his novels, because there's a lot of words, a lot of characters. And this one, it was different. It was different. Dune. Okay, so this was my brother's recommendation, and I do not always go for science fiction, but I do enjoy a good adventure, and I did really enjoy his writing. It was smart, engaging, but the story, it's very war-torn. I did not consider it a light read, but it was a good adventure. I don't know if I'm going to read the rest. I did enjoy his writing as an author, but I didn't love the story so much that I want to continue the story throughout all the novels, if you get my drift. But I think that's mostly because I like happy endings. I need to kind of guard against too much of the real life sad endings, and I can get that anytime you're dealing with war and revenge and battle of powers, you're going to have a lot of tragedy, and don't want too much of that. 617 pages there. All right, E.M. Forster, Howard's End. What a charming book. I really enjoyed that read. E.M. Forster, he's so good. He wrote A Room with a View, A Passage to India, and I really did enjoy Howard's End. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I just say if you have an opportunity to read it, it's really compelling as far as the time period and the women's movement towards equality and the suffragettes, the intellectual classes. Very interesting. The characters were really endearing. It was primarily two sisters and their sweet relationship and sweet method of communication and understanding one another. I could really relate with. I liked that there was redemption in it. There are all kinds of endings throughout life depending on when you stop. Like we all in our life, if you look at our whole life, we have happy moments and we have sad moments, and there are times of real hardship. And then there are times that are just so beautiful and so rich. If you're looking at a life and you end the book at a time, of richness and of satisfaction and of hope, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? This is Atomic Habits. Now, I have to be honest with you. This is the only book of this 8-book bunch that I haven't yet completed. I just wanted to include it because I am enjoying it. I'm about halfway through, and I think that doing any of these little books that are on the New York Times bestselling list, and just kind of self-help, let's learn a couple things to help us in our everyday production, I think it's beneficial. You don't have to go and change your entire way of doing things, but you can get some tidbits of how to improve. And that's what I love about these type of books. I was gonna read you something. So the first 3 laws of behavior change: make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy. And the 4th law is make it satisfying. But then just remember, our human nature is kind of always looking for immediate satisfaction. And you have to be very wary of that, because a lot of times when you're making life changes, it isn't immediately satisfying, but it can be satisfying in the sense that you're making check marks. You are acknowledging your success over a period of days. I have successfully done this habit 7 days in a row. Check. You can see your own consistency. It's a good read. The next one is called Abide in Christ, and I just loaned this to my sister because I loved it so much, and she is loving it so much that she's going to get her own copy. It's by Andrew Murray. Older, I think it was written in the early... It's just a beautiful book about John 15, about abiding in Christ, abiding in his presence, resting in him, learning to just acknowledge how he's with us always. And I would read it before I went to bed at night. Just a very soothing, a very, very peaceful book. It's not written like a devotional, but you can certainly use it as a devotional and something to really just anchor your thoughts in before you go to bed at night. So the most recent book that we read for our book club, if you have a friend that loves to read, get that friend and say, hey, let's read this book together. And this is the book, A Gentleman in Moscow. Wow, I loved that book so much. An excellent, enjoyable book. Pay attention to it. It's a historical fiction, 600 or 700 pages. But I loved the richness of the time period, the 1920s to the 1950s, and just rich in what was happening around the world, but especially in Russia and in Moscow around that time period. And if I could recommend, while you're reading that book, watch Casablanca. You would just lose a lot of reference in the book if you haven't watched that movie. Casablanca with Humphrey Bogart. Such a classic. All right, lastly but not leastly, number 8 is a Louisa May Alcott, and it is called An Old-Fashioned Girl, and I loved this. We also read this 2 months ago with our book club, and she's such a charming writer. She is consistently charming in every single story. You would know her because she wrote Little Women, also one of the best books of all time. I highly recommend all her other work, but this one was just such a charming story, a lovely story. The heroine, you like her, you love her, and she's got such good character, and she's always going around and being refreshing wherever she goes. And I just thought it was a very, very sweet story. I am planning on reading that book with my kids over the next couple months because I do think that they will enjoy it as well. So there's my recommendations for your summer reading, and I hope you will choose one and just get a cup of coffee and sit in the sunshine. Danielle Hogan signing off. I will see you next time, and I'm going to take a few minutes right now. I'm starting Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep, so we'll see how that is.